It was a Tuesday morning on the Savannah coast, the kind that smelled like sea salt and distant rain. The light through my kitchen window was soft and gold, sliding over the stack of wedding invoices I'd promised to finalize before lunch. My name is Alyssa Grant, 31, project manager by trade, unpaid wedding planner by blood. I had just hit send on the final floral payment when my phone buzzed. A notification from Mom, Margaret Grant. We all agreed. 3 words. No context. No emoji. No warmth. Before I could type a response, another message appeared. We all agreed. You're not welcome at the wedding. A dash, not a period. That familiar, smug little dash Mom used whenever she wanted to sound polite while delivering cruelty. It was her way of softening the blade before twisting it. I stared at the screen, reread it twice. My first thought wasn't anger. It was confusion. Then came the pit in my stomach, the one that arrives when you realize something you love has been quietly dying for years, and you're only now seeing the body. I whispered, "No way." But even I didn't believe myself. Sophie Grant, my younger sister, was getting married next weekend. A coastal ceremony, white orchids, an ivory and gold theme that looked less like a wedding and more like a royal baby shower. I'd been her fixer, her therapist, her crisis hotline for months. I handled the vendors when she couldn't. I soothed Mom's meltdowns over seating charts. I paid half the venue deposit because Mom's credit was maxed out again, and now I wasn't welcome. I sat there for a full minute, phone in hand, half expecting the text to vanish or morph into an apology. It didn't. It sat there on the screen, glowing smugly, proof that my usefulness had expired. For a moment, I thought about calling, asking why, begging, maybe. But something inside me, a small, exhausted voice, whispered, "Don't." Instead, I opened my laptop again. The cursor blinked on the travel website I'd used to book Sophie's honeymoon flights, 2 business-class tickets to Cabo San Lucas. My name was on the reservation, not theirs. I hovered for a second, then clicked cancel. The screen blinked. Refund confirmed, $3,800. Next, I logged into my bank. The $15,000 wire I'd sent last month to Mom for overflow costs reversed. Watching the balance shift back felt nothing like victory. It felt like air finally filling my lungs. I didn't text back. I didn't post a thing. I just closed my laptop and stared out at the marshland beyond my window, the tide pulling quietly against the shore. For the first time in years, there was no buzzing phone, no new emergency to fix, just stillness, and beneath it, a truth I'd spent most of my life ignoring. In my family, love had never been unconditional. It was a service one you paid for in cash, favors, and silence. I reached for my coffee, now cold, and said out loud, "If they don't want me at their wedding, they don't get my help either." The words didn't sound bitter, they sounded final. The next morning, the world looked exactly the same blue sky, restless gulls, the hum of Savannah traffic, but something inside me had shifted. I poured coffee, pretending it was just another workday, but the silence in my phone told a different story. No apology. No explanation, just the quiet confidence of people who believe they can erase you and still expect you to show up when they need something. I wasn't surprised. Not really. The truth is, I'd been rehearsing for this kind of betrayal my entire life. It just took 31 years and a wedding to make it official. Growing up as Margaret Grant's eldest daughter meant I was trained to clean up what others broke. My mother was the kind of woman who could turn every problem into someone else's responsibility. When Sophie, my little sister, got caught sneaking out in high school, it was me who took the blame because a good sister protects her family. When Dad's truck broke down, I gave up my summer job savings to help. I didn't even drive. They called it love. I called it duty. By the time I turned 25, I'd learned that helping wasn't a choice, it was the currency for belonging. If I kept the peace, I earned a seat at the table. If I said no, I was cold, ungrateful, or Mom's favorite, just like your father. That one always landed like a curse. Mom adored appearances. The Grant family was her stage play about stability matching outfits for Christmas, white smiles for Facebook, the kind of curated chaos that only cracked once the cameras were off. Beneath the shine, we were a mess held together by my willingness to keep pretending. When Sophie got engaged, the pattern just repeated itself. Mom called the day after the proposal, her voice already high with demands. "You'll help your sister." "Right. You're so good with numbers." And she's already overwhelmed. I didn't even hesitate. Of course. It wasn't generosity, it was instinct. Soon, my weekends became spreadsheets and vendor calls. I transferred money when her fiancé's card declined, soothed her panic attacks when Mom criticized the flowers, and quietly covered the deposits that would have wrecked their credit. Mom praised me for being the reliable one. But behind my back, she told relatives I was lucky to have no husband, no kids, no excuses not to help. That's what stung the most, not the work, not the money. But how invisible my effort always was. In their world, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was infrastructure. I used to believe that if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. Now, staring at my silent phone, I understood they saw me perfectly. They just didn't value what they saw. So when Mom sent that text, it wasn't random cruelty. It was confirmation. The family role I'd spent my life performing was never love. It was labor. And for the first time, I wasn't showing up for the job. I didn't answer my mother's message. I didn't call, didn't argue, didn't ask for an explanation that would only bruise me deeper. The old me would have driven to her house, demanded to talk, begged for logic. But logic had no place in our family-only control and the illusion of forgiveness that followed. This time, I gave them something they'd never expected from me: silence. It was strange how peaceful revenge could feel when it wasn't driven by anger. My laptop sat open on the kitchen table, its blue light flickering against the half-empty mug beside me. The travel portal was still logged in from last night, my cursor hovering over Sophie's honeymoon itinerary. 2 round-trip tickets to Cabo San Lucas booked under my name because Mom's credit had been temporarily complicated. I clicked cancel. The screen blinked once. Refund confirmed. $3,800 returned to my account. Next came the $15,000 wire I'd sent last month, the one Mom said she just needed for a few weeks while she covered the final venue payment. I reversed it without hesitation. Watching the numbers shift felt like closing a wound that had been bleeding for years. No fireworks, no shouting, just a steady, controlled breath. My phone vibrated again. Sophie's name flashing across the screen, but I let it ring. I imagined her voice, soft and manipulative, the same tone she used when she wanted something. I didn't owe her that power anymore. Outside, the tide was pulling low against the marsh. The air smelled like salt and freedom. I sat by the window, tracing the rim of my cup, thinking about how much energy I'd spent keeping a family together that was never interested in staying whole. I should have felt guilt. I didn't. What I felt was balance. For every lie, every dismissal, every guilt trip disguised as love, I was finally matching their silence with my own. Somewhere deep down, I knew they'd panic soon. Mom would start calling. Sophie would cry. The family would spin a new story about me, the ungrateful daughter, the bitter sister. Let them. For the first time. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to prove I was good. I just needed to stay quiet and let the silence do the work. By the time the sun slid behind the marsh that evening, my phone had become a war zone of missed calls. Sophie, Mom, 2 aunts, even a cousin I hadn't heard from in months. 23 notifications stacked on top of one another. Each one a small reminder that chaos doesn't like silence. It feeds on it. I turned my phone face down on the counter and reheated last night's leftovers, pretending everything was fine. But when the screen lit up again, it wasn't Mom or Sophie. It was Dad, Thomas Grant. His name alone made my chest tighten. My father rarely called. When he did, it was about simple things: the weather, the new fishing rod he'd found on sale, the broken coffee maker he was finally gonna fix. He avoided drama like it was contagious, and maybe it was. He'd spent decades living with Mom's tempests, learning how to navigate her moods like a man tiptoeing through a minefield. His text was short. "You need to see this now." 6 words, no punctuation. But from my father, that was a flare shot into the sky. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over call. For years, Dad and I had existed on a fragile truce of quiet understanding. He saw more than he said, and I forgave more than I should have. But something in that message told me this wasn't just another family misunderstanding. When he picked up, I could hear the faint buzz of a muted TV in the background. He turned the volume down before speaking. "Alyssa, you got a minute?" His voice was careful, the way people talk when they know bad news is coming. "Yeah, Dad. What's going on?" He sighed, long and heavy. "I didn't know they were gonna do that. Your mom and Sophie. I only found out this morning, after they locked down the seating chart." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Locked down. That's a nice way to say uninvited your daughter. It's worse than that." He paused. "They told the family you chose not to come. Said you got upset over something small and backed out." I closed my eyes. The kitchen seemed to tilt. "They what?" "They said you were dramatic, that you didn't want to be there. Your mom told Sophie's in-laws you threatened to ruin the wedding if you showed up." It felt like a physical hit, clean and deep. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then Dad added softly, "I know that's not you, sweetheart. I've seen everything you've done for them. You've always been the one holding it together." The words should have comforted me, but they didn't. They just confirmed what I already knew. He'd seen it all and stayed quiet anyway. "So they kicked me out," I said, my voice low, and made it look like it was my idea. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think they're trying to protect themselves." I nodded to no one, staring at the dark window. Then maybe it's time I protect myself too. The next morning, the world was quiet again. That strange kind of silence that feels staged, like the calm before an argument you know is coming. The air smelled of salt and stale coffee. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mom's message blinking like a warning light. We all agreed. It wasn't just a decision, it was a verdict. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when my phone buzzed again. A new message from Dad. No words this time, just an image attachment. I opened it, and for a second, my breath caught in my throat. It was a screenshot. A group chat titled Wedding Crew. The members: Mom, Sophie, Aunt Cheryl, Aunt Denise. My name wasn't there, but my name was all over the messages. The first text was from Mom. "Don't worry about Alyssa. She's just sensitive because no one's ever loved her enough to marry her." Then Sophie replied, a line of laughing emojis before adding, "She's bitter, always has been. We just have to make sure she doesn't embarrass us." Aunt Cheryl chimed in, "So we're agreed. No +1 for her even if she begs." And then Mom again, closing the conversation the same way she closed every argument. Exactly. No seat, no speech, no drama. She'll get over it. She always does. My thumb trembled as I scrolled back up, reading it again and again, trying to make the words mean something else. But they didn't. They were plain and cruel and familiar. I set the phone down, staring at it like it might apologize. The truth hit me like a slow tide. My family hadn't just excluded me. They'd mocked me for being the kind of woman I was: single, independent, inconvenient. The daughter who worked too much, spoke too directly, didn't need saving. In their world, that made me a problem to hide, not a person to love. I deleted the screenshot not out of denial, but because I didn't need a receipt for what I already knew. For 31 years, I'd been the quiet glue that kept their picture-perfect image from falling apart. But glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks underneath. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled, the sound rough but steady. If they wanted me invisible, I could do that. Only this time, it wouldn't be from submission. It would be from power. Because the one thing my family had never learned about me was the same thing they were about to find out when I go quiet. It's not because I've given up. It's because I've started planning. By noon that day, the shock had burned away, leaving something sharper clarity. I wasn't going to argue, beg, or explain. I'd spent too many years in that role, waiting for accountability that never came. This time, I would speak in the only language my family truly understood: consequences. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started with the basics. The shared Costco membership canceled. The Hulu, Netflix, and Disney Plus family plans gone. I deleted every shared login, every automatic payment tied to my accounts. Every small favor I'd quietly shouldered became a line item to erase. It was mechanical, methodical, almost soothing. Then I moved to the bigger things. Sophie's student loan payments. I'd been the secret autopay backup since she maxed out her account in college. Disabled. Mom's phone plan, which I'd been covering since her temporary layoff in 2019, suspended. I imagined her sitting at the salon this Friday, trying to call Sophie, and getting a deadline. Each click, each confirmation email, was another thread pulled from the web they'd built around me. The more I cut, the lighter I felt. Then I opened the folder marked wedding expenses. There it was, the venue contract. My name. My signature. I was the primary holder. They'd never paid me back for the deposit. Of course, they never do. I read through the terms again, tracing each sentence with my fingertip until I reached what I was looking for. The reservation may be canceled by the contracting party with written notice. I stared at that line for a long moment, my reflection faint in the laptop screen. They thought they'd removed me from the wedding. They forgot who actually held it together. I started drafting the email. My tone was polite, professional. Dear Coastal Oaks Events, I'd like to formally cancel the reservation for the Grant Martin wedding scheduled for next Saturday. The words looked beautiful. Final. I hit send. The confirmation arrived minutes later. Your cancellation request has been received, per your contract. The deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured. I smiled. Let them explain that to 118 guests flying in for a wedding that no longer had a venue. My phone buzzed again. Sophie this time, then Mom. I didn't answer. The calls would only grow more frantic from here, but I wasn't interested in their panic. I wasn't doing this to hurt them. I was just unbuilding the machine they'd built out of me, and by the time they realized it, it would already be gone. By Thursday morning, the silence had turned into panic, but not mine. My phone lit up with missed calls and voicemails, the kind that start polite and end desperate. I could almost hear the tone shift without pressing play, Mom's sharp voice softening into fake worry, Sophie's shaky attempts at guilt. I didn't need to listen. The silence on my end was saying more than words ever could. I made myself breakfast, watched the steam rise from my coffee, and let the world unravel without me. For once, I wasn't the first responder to their chaos. Then, at 9:43 a.m., an unfamiliar name appeared on my screen. Linda Marshall, the groom's mother. I remembered her from the engagement dinner, soft-spoken, organized, and far too polite to belong in our family's orbit. I hesitated before answering, curiosity winning over caution. "Alyssa," she began, voice tight but kind. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I'm afraid something has come to my attention, and I wanted to confirm it with you." There was a pause long enough to feel the air change. "Of course," I said carefully. "What's this about?" "I'm reviewing the final expense report for the wedding," she said, "and I noticed your name listed as a co-signer on a credit card tied to some of the costs." I blinked. "I'm sorry what it appears to be a joint line between your mother, your sister, and you. The application shows your signature." For a moment, the room felt smaller. My pulse slowed, my body cold from the inside out. "I never signed anything. I said flatly. That's what I thought, Linda replied. I wanted you to know before this got worse. My husband recognized your name when reviewing the statement. It didn't look right. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the wall, the truth spreading like a stain. Mom hadn't just taken my money this time. She'd taken my name. The laptop was already open. I typed Grant Family Credit Line into my email search bar. There it was. An auto-generated confirmation from 2 weeks ago, application approved. My signature digital, forged, perfect. My address, my social security number, my old work email. It was all there. I should have felt rage. Instead, I felt still. A stillness that came from final understanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a bad week or family stress. This was theft. This was betrayal written in black ink. I gathered every document, screenshot each page, and uploaded them to a new folder on my desktop labeled Fraud Evidence, M. Grant. I called the credit company, filed the report, then went online to submit a formal police claim. When the representative asked for my reason, I said simply, identity fraud by immediate family. The words didn't tremble. They sounded like freedom. When I was done, I leaned back and exhaled. It wasn't the money. It was the principle. They'd treated me like a tool for so long. They forgot tools can cut both ways. My phone buzzed again. Mom, of course. I let it ring out, smiling faintly. They wanted control. They wanted my resources, my silence, my compliance. Now they had my attention instead, and that, I thought, was going to cost them far more than they could ever repay. By Thursday evening, the air outside smelled like rain and panic. I'd already filed the fraud report, attached the documents, and spoken to 2 investigators who confirmed what I already knew. The application was a textbook forgery. My mother's digital handwriting, Sophie's email trail, and my stolen information sitting in neat, traceable order. Every file was a confession they didn't realize they'd written. The phone rang again just as the sky cracked open with thunder. Mom, Margaret Grant. Of course. I stared at the screen until the call stopped. Then it rang again, and again. On the 4th attempt, I answered. Alyssa, Mom said, her voice bright and sugary. The tone she used on waiters and strangers. Thank God. I was just about to call you. I said nothing. The silence stretched until it broke her rhythm. Honey, listen, we need to talk about all this nonsense with the wedding. Did you sign my name on a credit card application? I asked. My voice was steady, calm, the kind of calm that scares people more than shouting. There was a pause. I could almost hear her swallow. Oh, for heaven's sake, you're being ridiculous, she said finally. It was just a small thing, a backup line for the honeymoon expenses. You'd have said yes if you knew. That's not an answer, I said quietly. Don't take that tone with me, she snapped. Your sister's heartbroken, your father's embarrassed, and now you're making this ugly. Over what? A little misunderstanding. I felt something shift inside me, a click, like a lock opening. You kicked me out of a wedding I paid for. You lied to everyone about me. And then you forged my name. I said, I didn't make this ugly. Mom, you did. I'm just turning on the light. Her voice changed then, cracking under the pressure. You wouldn't do this to family, she pleaded. I already did this for family. I said, for years. I'm just done doing it alone. Silence. Then a soft, dangerous whisper. If you report this, Alyssa, you'll regret it. Families talk. You'll ruin your reputation. Good, I said. Then they'll finally know the truth. The line went dead. I set the phone down, my hand shaking not from fear, but release. The house was quiet except for the rain tapping against the window, steady and soft. I thought about all the times I'd picked up her calls, every midnight panic, every guilt-laced favor, every "you're the only one I can count on." This time, I didn't run to fix it. Later that night, I drove to Dad's house. He was waiting on the porch. 2 mugs of coffee steaming beside him. We didn't need words. We just sat, watching the rain drift off the roof. After a while, he said, "You did the right thing, sweetheart." And for the first time in years, I believed him. The storm outside eased, but inside, something far bigger had broken, not me, but the hold they had on me. And for the first time, that silence didn't feel like loss. It felt like freedom. A week passed before the final wave of fallout hit. By then, the wedding that was supposed to happen on the coast had collapsed completely. The venue contract I'd canceled never got replaced. The guests who flew in had nowhere to go, and the groom's family, once polite and reserved, discovered the forged credit card application. Within 48 hours, they called the entire thing off. Apparently, financial fraud isn't a great way to start a marriage. Sophie posted cryptic quotes on social media, Bible verses about betrayal, captions about snakes in the grass, photos of herself in a white dress staring out to sea. Mom followed with her own version of the story, painting herself as the heartbroken matriarch whose daughter had lost her way. The family group chat I was never part of became a rumor mill, each message twisting truth into something convenient. I didn't respond. Not once. Silence had become my shield. And I wasn't putting it down now. Dad stopped by a few days later, a quiet knock on my door. He didn't bring speeches or questions, just a box filled with old photos, birthdays, graduations, and one of me at 10 years old, holding Sophie's hand at the beach. We sat together on the porch, the Georgia sky heavy with evening light. "You did the right thing," he said again, handing me a picture of us fishing years ago. I nodded. "It doesn't feel right. It just feels done." He smiled, that tired kind of smile only men like him have. Sometimes done is the best kind of peace. When he left, I checked my phone one last time. A single new message from Mom. "You've made your point. We're all hurting. You didn't have to go this far." I didn't open it. I didn't delete it either. I just turned the phone off and packed a small suitcase. 2 days later, I was on a plane to Cabo San Lucas, the honeymoon destination I'd booked for Sophie. The reservation was still under my name. I changed the dates, upgraded the suite, and kept the champagne package. That night, I sat on the balcony, waves folding into each other beneath the stars, glass in hand. For once, the silence wasn't heavy. It was holy. For once. I whispered, "I'm not saving anyone. I'm choosing me." And this time, I meant it.